It's time for the movie raid, and this time we have a director and writer, Jay Woelfel. Hello.
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 Hello back.
Psh, bullshit. Anyway, you have a new film coming out.
I do. I have a new film called Closed for the Season coming out August 23rd through MTI. And I have another film, hopefully, which will be finished this year, probably won't get released this year, called Season of Darkness. So they're both horror movies. They have nothing to do with each other except that the titles sort of accidentally seem to be related.
Oh, yeah. Because they got the book, Closed for the Season, which is by Mary Hanna or something like that.
Right, Mary Downing Hahn.
Yeah, Hahn, yeah.
Yeah, the book, we shot the film in 2008. The film's based on the stories around this park in Ohio called Chippewa Lake Park, which is 130 years old. It had been closed for 30 years when we shot there, and it looked like an Incan ruin to me. It was like all completely overgrown with trees and stuff.
Yeah.
So we shot it in August of 2008. The book, which I've never read, was probably being written around the same time. Some people involved in the movie actually thought that the book was a rip-off of our general basic premise. But she certainly couldn't have seen the movie. It's unlikely she read the script, or almost impossible she would have read the script. I mean, she's been writing books for a long time. So it's probably just, complete coincidence. It does, that the book, and all I've read is this little synopsis of the book, a little ad line for it, which is two kids go to a park to sort of solve a murder. When I was doing the movie, the big thing I knew about was what I didn't want it to be. And so I didn't want it to be a movie about an Indian burial ground under an amusement park or an evil amusement park or any of the stuff that I'd seen done. I didn't want it to be another version of Carnival of Souls. Because those had already been done and done well, or just been done and done to death, depending on which example you want to take. So what I did was I went to the park and I actually I started asking all the people involved in the production what their memories of going to parks were, as kids and stuff, what stood out in their minds. Then I went to the park and I listened to all the stories and I went online and saw video and basically as I started hearing all these things, I started trying to put together something based on the actual folklore of that park. Some of those stories I heard turned out to be true. A lot of them turned out to be, at odds with each other. But I was really searching to do something different. I think especially when you do an indie movie, you need to do something different. You can't do, your own version of, Green Lantern or something, because you're not going to have the money that they have to do it. And you're just going to be a cheap rip-off of some big-budget movie. So you really, your personality is a big thing, meaning the personality of your movie is a big selling point. It's not going to be like something big because, let's face it, buyers will always buy the expensive, shiny thing.
Yeah, like glorified actors. I mean, granted, these are good actors, but not for this film, Like, you get actors for Morgan Freeman or Will Smith into this film. It's like, what does this have to do with horror?
Yeah, or, you look at, certain actors become like genres themselves, like some of the wrestlers who became actors, or, Charles Bronson and all. They became a type of movie. It was like, we're going to make a Charles Bronson movie, only they won't have Charles Bronson in it. Okay, we've already probably made a crappy decision.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Close to the Season was based on, I was going in there to try to see what makes these places creepy, what they're really about, and tell a story, true to that location.
Yeah, not just because it looks creepy, because there's a lot of films that just has a creepy location, but there's no any significance to the story.
It's the same as 50 other movies that just happen. Instead of taking place in the woods, it takes place in an amusement park or on a boat or something. Yeah. They're not really using their location to change what the story is. It's the same old story. They've just sort of changed the clothes on it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that.
They do that with Exorcist type films. Someone being possessed and someone's got to go redeem them, relieve them from the demon. It's so old. It gets old real quick. You see a lot of those these days. It's nothing but, devil-like films. It just gets so old.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of, yeah. And, once something's a success, then everybody will pick it up and try to copy it.
Yeah.
So again, you should try to do something I'd like to think, and I like a lot of different types of horror movies. And what I like about the genre is that it can be all kinds of different things. It's not, it's not something like, I don't know, I don't want to insult anybody's favorite type of movie or whatever, but it's not like a Smurf movie or a Hobbit film or something like that where it's like what's a very specific kind of thing, But horror movies can be all kinds of, they cross genres, there can be horror comedies, there can be sci-fi horror, there can be supernatural horror, there can just be sort of straight ahead horror.
Oh yeah.
So what I always liked about it was it was so different, and I kind of get worried that some people growing up just kind of on like the mainstream, the mainstream releases will almost like get used to horror movies being like I refer to them sometimes as like a Happy Meal. It's like what's going to be in it, and if it's not exactly like what you've gotten a million times before, you're like, what the hell's this? This isn't a Happy Meal.
Yeah.
That's not what I love about horror movies, and so when I make them, especially if you're making one, I've worked for Charlie Band, I've worked for people who had a very kind of more limited, I don't know what you want to call it, limited amount of, you had limited freedom. There was like, here's what we're making, and then you sort of like do the best you can within their limitations.
Yeah.
You still try to make the best, movie it's going to be, but it's sort of pre-sold. It's a kind of a package.
Yeah, without some restrictions from a big company that you got a contract with. Oh, you got to do this within a certain amount of time. Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you do something on your own and you have a chance to do something different, I would hope you would. After so that's what I try to do with these two movies. So both of these movies, I like films where you don't know how they're going to end when they start. However it ends, you don't see it coming from the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Both of these films kind of play with what your expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
How people react. I showed close to the season at a bunch of different conventions so far. I re-edited it some after we showed it initially. But it's interesting, and some people really, really get into it. But they're like, oh man, this isn't quite like anything I expected. And sometimes they say that in like a negative way, which to me is just horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, oh, geez, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to screw up.
It wasn't exactly what you expected it to be. Because that's the thing, like going in, you play with what people expect, then you start to take them somewhere else. So then you're in uncharted waters. You're like, oh crap, I don't really know what this movie's about. Oh, that's interesting. Rather than going like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. Now I'm disinterested. But I don't know. I'll give horror fans still some credit. But I certainly like on a corporate level, like big studios and stuff. They Saw became a whole type of movie. It's like, well, we need a Saw movie, which means we want something exactly like Saw, as little different as humanly possible.
Yeah, as long as you don't combine, like you get a director and a writer from films like that, or like Hostel, and you combine them and make one film, it's pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see some films like that. It just doesn't.
One comes out that somehow breaks the mold, and then
it's like I've seen this before. It's like with video game companies. They'll make a video game, then another company that's affiliated with another popular game, and they make a game together. It's still the same type look to it.
Yeah, no, they want it to be as much like everything else as possible, because that's sort of like the corporate safe route to go.
Yeah.
Ironically, like what the industry needs, what any industry needs, is some big breakthrough thing to sort of like something that somehow gets through the system or comes out of nowhere and gets picked up, and then people discover and go, oh wow, this is great, and then that opens up the whole thing again. It's a whole cycle. Something new and successful is not going to remain new very long, because everybody else who wants to be successful is going to try to make one just like it. They're going to try to figure out what it was. They're going to make 50 of them.
Yeah, you just see a lot of repeats.
Yeah.
Does this film have CGI a lot? Do you put a lot of it in there, or you just pretty much go primitive?
There's some. I prefer to go primitive or analog or whatever. It's nice when you're on set to like shoot something and know it worked, and then you go home going, okay, yeah, that worked. With CG, you never know till later.
Yeah.
Shoot it, and you're allowing space for what the CG is going to be. But the CG, CG just takes forever. For it to be any good at all, it takes a very, very long time. You look at Avatar and how much that movie cost and how long it took to make. A big part of that reason is just, in that case, Cameron just like writing these guys to like make it the way he wants it and get it good.
There's so much more money into CGI than to actually put like actual engineering into the making objects, props.
Right, and another thing about CG, I think, is that a lot of it has kind of a shareware kind of feel after a while. I mean, there's a certain number of programs that everybody uses.
Yeah.
The way the light beams are done and all this kind of stuff becomes really the same after a while.
There's a proper use for CGI. It's just it's abused now. It's just painted everywhere.
It's a great tool to have in addition to the other stuff you do. Another thing I tell people, it's like if you go see somebody do the same card trick over and over again 1,000,000 times, you'll see through it. But if you mix it up with a bunch of other stuff, then it's like, oh wow, that was cool, and then you're on to something else. So CG should really be interactive with the stuff you shot. And we did use CG for stuff, sometimes to correct mistakes. CG is great for getting rid of things that otherwise you'd unable to reshoot.
It's good for several things. It's just that a lot of films have
there's some stuff in this movie which deals with doubles. Because they start to run into themselves in the film. The film deals with the characters both as little kids and adults, and then at one point they kind of run into themselves when they realize that they're potentially trapped here. So they start to see events, that kind of stuff. In old time movies, optical effects were almost always, you could tell like the generation loss in the image and all these problems and stuff. I mean, in black and white movies they pretty much got it down. But in color, it was always just a real problem.
Yeah.
And with CG, with the matting and that stuff they can do, and that's just that's a huge breakthrough. And and being able to ideally you'd make like a giant puppet, and you'd have all these strings and wires, and then with CG you could take all that out.
Yeah.
You'd have this really kick-ass practical monster, and then you could take out all the operators and stuff.
Yeah, which is bad for them.
You don't save money with CG. Basically, like when you shoot, you save a lot of money, and then you think like, oh boy, here we go, and then like it just hits CG, and the CG on this movie, there was not very much of it. It still took almost a year for the CG to get done. We were just waiting and waiting on stuff.
Yeah, it's like it just makes you wonder. It's like, is it really worth it to put so much CGI in one film, and yet you could use that money for other stuff for the film?
Yeah, I mean it's in all these movies, just the years in post on these.
No, they just paint the shit out of a film with CGI. I mean, as I said, there's nothing wrong with CGI as long as you got a proper use for it. If you, like I said, with blood splurts, if you want a specific blood to splurt somewhere that you don't like, or especially with horror films, decapitation in certain ways, I mean, that's fine. But at least keep the guys.
You should use it to mix real elements and put them together seamlessly, rather than basically just draw a cartoon to the guy's head when it gets cut off.
No. At least keep the guys that actually make the molds of the heads, and a lot of like Tom Savini's work.
Mm-hmm. And then if you have practical things on set, and it the way it interacts with the light and all that stuff, then the CG guys can look at that and make the CG look like the style of the rest of the movie. Where if you're starting just completely from scratch with something, you deal a lot with like what lenses to use, because you choose a lens for the 3D object you make, and most CG guys have no idea of what things are like in the real world in terms of filming something in the real world, like how light really reacts with stuff, what the lens choice does to the way things look. Because more than once I've dealt with CG guys and I said, okay, let's go in and change the lens to this or that, and they do it and they go, oh wow, this looks totally different now. It's like, yeah, this is the same type of lens we shot the rest of the scene with, so now when you put it in there, it's going to all stick together better.
Yeah.
But it's just, and it's, and of course there are people who only work in the practical world who don't know how to interact with CG guys either. But the bottom line is it takes a lot of time, and I think in almost every movie you ever see, there's some bad CG, and really they just ran out of time. Everything looks great on the desktop, and then you get it up there on the big screen, and it's like, holy shit, what is that? It's like, well, that's it, because your release date popped up. And
yeah, you look at the screen, and it's like, oh, wow, that's completely fucked up. It's almost like doing painting on cartoons, like you said.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like a bad cartoon. Or a bad video game, or a big video game.
Yeah, on a big screen. Oh, wow.
Yeah, except you can't play with it. You just got to sit there and take it like a man.
Yeah, that's
so,
like...
Yeah, but no, I mean, CGI, it's great, but it shouldn't be just used on its own. It ought to be used with all the other tricks people have learned over the years making movies. Basically, movies now, the whole film is essentially CGI. They take the whole movie, whether you shoot on film or you shoot on HD, and you go to a digital intermediate, so it basically goes onto a hard drive, and then somebody's in there, like, jacking around with it like Photoshop. and then it's output from there. So the difference between film and video becomes less and less because it all basically goes to kind of a digital, quote-unquote, video. I'll use the word video. They would use the word digital, which is the big buzzword. Everybody gets all excited about anything digital. Oh, my God, it's digital. It must be great.
It's just like the whole Matrix scenario, what they did with the Matrix. The bullets flying over the guy in slow motion, then every film started doing that.
Yep. That's weird, And usually CG stuff, hopefully looks better in the movie than when you look at it as stills. I remember you get, Cinefex in these magazines, you look at stills, and you're like, oh, this doesn't look so great. You see the movie, and a lot of it looks really good, but as soon as you stop it, you can kind of pick it apart. You see what's wrong with it.
Yeah. Do you think, big budget films, is it really worth having a big budget film, or do you really prefer kind of a minimal or low budget film?
Well, it just depends on the movie you're making. And another thing, and on the commentary track for The Thing, John Carpenter and Kurt Russell at one point were talking, and towards the end of it, Carpenter says, he goes, making a big budget studio movie, if the studio's behind it, nothing is better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, studios become less and less able to really get behind the movie to begin with. So if you just have 1,000 people picking at the movie, George Miller, the Australian, Mad Max George Miller, not the other George Miller, who's also Australian, he said that making a movie is like being pecked to death by ducks. And that's what happens in the movie is you have all these ducks picking at the script and picking at the edits. Everybody can pop these things in their laptop now. Everybody could edit a film, really. You just load it in your, take the DVD somebody gave you, load it in there, and recut it.
Yeah. Not only having 10 writers for the film.
The movie never exists as any finished thing. It's not like the director gets to preview his cut of the movie. His cut of the movie, lasts a day. And so it's just,
Yeah, it's just like the writers when they write the script. A majority of the time, they just send the script in and they can't do anything about it, and they have other writers to fix your shit.
Right. But yet, whenever they try to the Writers Guild occasionally has had these votes where they want to make that if you write on a movie, you get a credit, and the Writers Guild themselves will never approve that. It's they don't want to know how many people hack away at these scripts. Yeah,
that some writers just don't want any part of that film. It's I didn't write that.
Right.
It's just with the whole.
I'd argue well, if you don't want the credit to write it, then you probably shouldn't have been hired to write it. Somebody else who wanted to put their name on it and make it good enough to have their name on it should have got the job.
Well, not only that, you should expect that your work will probably be edited by 3 or 4, maybe 7 writers for this film to begin with.
So that's and really this is not the age of the director either. There's very few directors who have final cut. It's not a lot of these big movies. The directors are pretty much interchangeable. They want somebody who won't basically interfere with the actor, who's really the what the movie's based around. So it's kind of shocking how many directors have come up and gotten cut down, in the last 10, 15 years. Big movies, and you look at the director's credits, who's that? You look them up, and they've done some commercials or something. It's just that, then, Paul Verhoeven and Joe Dante and these guys, you listen to them talk now, and Verhoeven left Hollywood because he's this is not the Hollywood it was when I came here. Dante also, it's you never really get to make your film anymore. Your film never has a chance to get seen. It's just changed a million times, and then it comes out.
Yeah, when you start out, you probably will have freedom to make your own film. Then, and when you start getting these other companies involved, then you pretty much have no freedom whatsoever. It turns up being a record label for toward musicians. It's they get everything pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So you get your cut, but you really don't get the credit that you really deserve.
Yeah. So if you make a big giant movie, you're going to be fighting a battle all the time to make something which you think is any good, which, I always say the director should be the audience for the film. At least it pleases you, and hopefully there's other people who wanted the same thing out of the movie you did. But it's not, the audience isn't 50 different people, half of whom haven't read the script even, looking at it one day and having a whole bunch of ideas and feeling that some of their ideas need to be acted upon so that they can feel involved. It's if you get a whole set of notes from somebody in a power position, you really have to do some of them. And it's damage control. It's like, okay, well, these things we can change without ruining it. This will ruin everything, so I got to like somehow fight them on this point, but give them, it's compromise in a bad sense.
No, yeah.
When you get too many cooks in the kitchen, whatever analogy you want. But it's not a director's medium at the moment. With a smaller film doing it indie wise, it has a chance to be that.
Is it equally as is it pretty much a problem just like the same way as you're writing toward your acting or directing? Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I started out as writing like Star Trek, stories and stuff on my own, and then when I started making movies, you write your own scripts because you can't really afford to buy anything cool you want to make into a movie,
Oh yeah.
So when I just wrote stuff, and eventually I did get my short stories published, like in the last, it's been about 5 years ago since I tried, because there's very little money in it, sadly. But basically, I thought that when I wrote a script and then made a movie from it, that like worked a lot better than when I just wrote the script. I think like the filmmaking abilities helped like make up for what I lacked as a writer, So it's a different process. I mean, writing is a very kind of lonely, solitary, specific thing. I think a big mistake people can have when they write is basically they're writing a cookbook.
Yeah.
Instead, and you give it to somebody else, they're like, well, nobody really, like, cookbooks are not fun reading. They're like, if you're making something, you'll, like, look at it and use it, but you're never going to read it for fun. And scripts shouldn't be like that. Scripts still need to be something that people can read and get into the movie from reading. So it's not just a list of shots and all this kind of stuff. You need to tell a story in a way that's visual, but doesn't seem oppressively visual. Like, you just can't, if you're writing something to sell to somebody else, they always tell you, like, don't write shot descriptions, but there's still ways you can write it in a way that people reading it will get how the scene's supposed to look.
Yeah, so you're saying it's like, is it a script or a manual?
Yeah, it's a script. It's a story you want to get somebody excited in, to work on, both actors and every other way. And when you're doing rewrites for people, sometimes you find out that it's really about the verbiage. It's the scene is perfectly fine, but they don't think it works because of something that really just has to do with the way you describe the scene rather than what's actually happening in the scene. So you have to be able to figure that out. When I was working at Full Moon, I remember they were like, oh, well, this character is kind of weak. And so then when I did the rewrite, I went through and basically, like, anything that character did had, like, exclamation points, or, like, he didn't just come into the room, he burst into the room, he slammed the door, It was this kind of stuff, and it totally worked. They read the new draft, which was different, but wasn't completely different, and it totally solved that problem. But it was just a matter of the presentation, was the prose of it. But yeah, because I went back and I read some old scripts of mine, which hadn't been made yet. So I read them, and I was like, well, this is like really hard to read because I'd forgotten how I wanted it to look.
Yeah. It's like after a while.
What the hell is this? And I went back and read some of my short stories, and I was like, oh, well, this is kind of exciting. So what I need to do is apply that kind of writing style to a script, and not load it up with a bunch of crap that's, can't be turned into a movie. But then when you direct a movie that you wrote, the thing I try to do is, if I'm writing it specifically for a production that's happening right away, you do write it in a way, hopefully, that's like sort of production friendly. And sometimes when you're shooting it, you get kind of cavalier and you come up with these ideas of how to stage things. And what almost invariably happens is that, like, you had a really good idea when you wrote it, and on set you're kind of like half cocked and tired, and you like come up with something you think is brilliant, and then you find you've like shot yourself into a hole.
Yeah.
Well, now I can't. Now I got to shoot all this extra crap because I did this.
Yeah.
The way it was written to be done a certain way, and now you basically like created a whole bunch of work. But sometimes, so you need to respect the writing, even if it's your own. You know what I mean? Just because you wrote it, you shouldn't assume that that you know better now, and you can just throw it out.
Yeah, it's just
tough. If you're directing a script somebody else wrote, you have to like read it and get into it so much that it seems like your own.
Well, especially remakes. Oh, horror remakes. So,
oh yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Prom Night.
Yeah.
Buried Alive.
Sorority Row, even. Yeah.
Everything, man. Because especially even toward the actors when they're playing a character like that, like I said, like Nightmare on Elm Street, playing that character that's been so iconic and so it's been there for years and years, and you're just not playing it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Hammer films, I really like Hammer films, and those started as remakes, and those are still really good remakes, but it's sort of like, I don't know, I mean, there were several kind of big leaps that Hammer was able to kind of take at the time that I don't think CG is as big a leap as color. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's been a long time since people have done, remakes are not easy. And it's been a long time since there have been almost any remakes which I thought were any good at all.
Yeah, there's some decent ones. Like Night of the Living Dead, I always use that as a prime example, because Night of the Living Dead is a great remake in general, because it's Tom Savini, and George Romero also had some involvement with it, of course, based on his story. And it absolutely fit perfectly if you were to compare the original to the remake. There's a lot of, really, if you want to compare, it fixes the problems from the original.
But there you've got some of the same, you've got Romero redoing his own.
Yeah, you got the same characters and everything, but it's just actually a little bit better, because if you look at the original, it's like, well, that character really shouldn't be doing that. I mean, why did this character do this? It's like the scene where they're throwing Molotovs out the window. It's like, why are they throwing Molotovs out the window? They could, they could bolt that, It's like they're blowing up the cars and stuff. It's like, where'd you fill up the cars with that? Or do something.
Yeah, the first movie, though, still has sort of its own kind of weird thing about it. But yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's like it's technically kind of crude, and like all those newscast things are pretty badly done. I mean, they had so little money.
Yeah,
you forget about how much of that newscast stuff there is, because you watch the movie on TV and there's a couple cool scenes, and you start sitting there. When they get in the house, and they're just kind of watching TV. It's like kind of a slog there for a while. But,
yeah, I mean, with remakes like that, it's like with this particular remake, it definitely points out, more in depth to the characters and the situation than what you see in the original. Even though the original at that time was in a rough time, because that's when horror films were just like the new hip thing, the new thing that no one knew about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, horror films were the big indie, the big indie breakthrough, movie. You could make them cheap and they could make a lot of money back, and everybody always loves that. I mean,
yeah.
The whole .com bubble, the whole excitement about that was that some people were making some money online, so then all these studios and stuff, everybody thought you just create something and call it .com and you're going to make zillions of dollars,
And then later on be outdated within, 6 months?
Right, yeah. And then that 6 months is going to become 3 months. And yeah, that's the cycle. The appetite for stuff getting digested and turned into nothing, happens more and more quickly. Dawn of the Dead is actually not a bad remake. Good remake, I thought. But the thing which happens now with in that movie, and since then, is that zombies are basically just something safe you can shoot.
Yeah.
Really a threat. They're basically just things you can so you have all this violence in the movie, but it's meaningless because the zombies are just literally meat puppets.
Yeah.
In Dawn of the Dead, the most of the violence done to people is the guy in the truck, the chainsaw killing people. It's whoa, holy shit. Because the zombies just loose. It's just it's a safe way to have a lot of violence in the movie, but it doesn't mean anything because you're really not killing or threatening the main characters. It's just a lot of action, and it's more action than violence or horror or suspense, really.
Like the original, it's a survival type film.
Yeah.
They're trying to find a situation to get out of what they got themselves into, and technically they can't get themselves out of it. In general, they just got to have a breath moment just to escape the situation, mostly.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about that movie, but the great thing is that when the one guy finally turns and then he rats him out, he takes the rest of the zombies to their hiding place. And that's all because you knew that character, you set that character up initially so that when that happens, that also is something you hadn't really seen in a zombie movie before at that point.
Yeah, and then you also got films like The Thing. You see the original of that, and then you see John Carpenter's.
Oh yeah, in that case they had an original story which essentially hadn't been done by the first film.
Yeah.
So they went to that, and they had source material which they could do. And Campbell's a really good writer. I've read some of his other stuff, and his stuff is just loaded with ideas, and so that was the big saving grace there. It's we're going to remake this movie, but hey, look at this. The source material was essentially not touched. So the original movie is essentially like a flashback in the movie. The interesting thing to me is they watch that on black and white TV. It's like black and white video, so it's almost like they're watching the original movie. When they look at those tapes.
Oh yeah, I mean the remake of The Thing
those are the scenes from the original movie. The thing with the thing under the ice stuff
Yeah.
to remember.
Definitely. Because the remake of The
And,
Thing,
you know,
it's
they
definitely
had a lot
awesome.
of money, and, you know, since Carpenter was considered to be, like, the next hot thing and stuff, they, like, left him alone. He had a, you know, large budget. And, of course, the movie came out the same year E.T. did. And one of those two movies was going to be a big hit. And I think Universal thought that The Thing was going to be the big hit. But E.T. was, and, you know, I think The Thing is really a better movie than E.T. in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Like, the remake of The Thing is so good.
You know, it was two completely different takes on an alien thing, and one or the other was probably going to get embraced by pop culture, and it turned out to be the cute alien, you know.
Yeah.
So there was just no room for the other movie.
Yeah.
And that also came, you know, Rob Bottin did a great job, and they had a lot of money and a lot of time to do the effects, because effects always take time, because half the time they don't work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the remake of The Thing. It's definitely more horror, like scare the shit out of you type horror. It's like because the characters themselves, they don't know what they're getting themselves. But the original, it's like it seems like they've been through that situation before. They're just drinking, having a good time. Oh look, there's a thing. It's outside the door. Okay, go over there. I'm going to get my shot right here.
Yeah, it's true. It's just another kind of annoyance for them.
But then the remake, it's like, wow, you know, they're really petrified. They don't know what's going on. They don't know who's who, what's happening. Is he the thing? Is he the thing? You know, run, shoot his ass, run, blow him up. You know, but that's what made that film, you know, so awesome, more in depth. But you definitely got to appreciate the originals, no matter what, how cheesy or even if they're not that great. You got to appreciate the original.
Yeah, it still has its own kind of energy to it. The score is kind of cool. And
Well, put it this way: without the original, there wouldn't be a remake.
But yeah, there'd be no name brand that somebody would embrace. And
Someone without that original film, no one would remember that, you know, those iconic moments.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Speaking of which, it's like, you know, independent films. There's a lot of them are just not making out there like they should. Some of them hit the shelves, like your major branch of video store. Some of them actually hit the shelves, but really, really don't make it as far as popularity goes. What's your opinions on that on independent films that's not like going out there as they should?
Yeah, I mean, there's not shelf space. There's less and less video stores, which is where if your movie got in there, it was sitting on a shelf right next to everything else. So if you went in and something else was rented, you know, those other films were sitting there. So it's like either get nothing or you give that a try.
Yeah.
Kids films, like they're developed a big interest from kids movies because kids don't know, you know, Jim Carrey from A Hole in the Ground, you know, when they start out.
Yeah.
They go into the store and, you know, they like to watch the same movie over and over again, but they want something else. And so they're developed a fairly big, like, home video kids market. And then, of course, like, Disney saw that. They started making straight-to-video sequels for the theatrical movies because the kids want something else.
No, yeah, they're also going
when
digital.
When you get rid of the store, then, like, there's the quality that the store gives you kind of vanishes. Of course, then there's the Internet, but the Internet's such a just big wash, you know, of like now that the majors are interested in it, they you know, advertise the hell out of the big movies more so even than a video store could. So basically your indie movies buried by all the banners, you know, that they buy on all the websites for all the big movies.
Well, a lot of them are going digital now as far as the independent films, and it seems like that's like their only revenue at this point because they just can't get those on the shelves for people to actually see it.
Right, and the thing is that the streaming and all this stuff doesn't really pay what selling your movie to on video, you know, on DVD paid.
Yeah. They're just not getting enough money even if they go directly digital. They just can't get enough money. Even if they like have a low budget film, they're out of money and they go digital and they're still not going to make it a lot of money. It's just like it's the whole rock band scenario. A lot of bands will do the same thing. They go on digital, sell like a couple tracks on there, but yet they stream the whole album for free. So it's like with films, some of them do the same thing.
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of the movie now, but there was this example, and it was not a big movie. And these people, I guess they couldn't really sell their film or something, so they just put it up on their website for free, and then they also sold it. So they initially just did it. It's like, well, we'll do this because nothing is happening with it. And they started selling some stuff, so people wanted to buy it if they liked it. If you bought it, you got the extras and stuff probably too. So after a certain amount of time, they took the free movie down because they figured, okay, well, now we've established it. When they took the free movie down, their sales dropped. When they put it back up for free, their sales went back up again.
Wow.
Now, they didn't expect that. That wasn't their plan. They just put it up for free because it's like, well, what the heck else can we do with this thing?
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, that's a big, you know, is that what you're going to do with your movie? Put it up there for free because you know people will buy it? I mean, that's kind of a big, you know, leap of faith.
Yeah.
The whole digital kind of vapor media thing. You know, it's at a scary moment just because the vapor media pays so little for everything. You know, music and all this other stuff. It's like so little compared to what used to be paid. You know, to pick up a movie. You know, it needs to. You know, it's the same audience potentially. It's a bigger audience. That's why everybody's excited about it. But why are you paying $1 for something that you used to pay $10 for? And that's literally what there used to be video chains that would pay $10 a unit. And now, you know, yeah, they'll put it up on your streaming or whatever, but you get like $1, you know, per time it's watched. That's like, you know, $1.10. I mean, that's a huge, you know, hit.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people they got to get their money back somehow, even if they don't invest money in their own film. They got to get. It's the same with actors. They got to get money somehow. It's the same thing with conventions. People bitch and moan about, oh, well, this person's charging $25 for an autograph. Well, it's not like they just make millions of dollars off this one film. They gotta make some revenue somehow.
Oh yeah, and you know, I mean, yeah, some of those people get paid to go to those things, but otherwise you pay for your table and you pay to get there, and it's like, well, that's already like a fairly big nut. And how many pictures can you sell? You know,
Yeah.
film $1 a piece. How many people are going to come get them?
No, it's like with book
Kind
signings.
of the attitude is like, well, just as many people will buy them at $10 as 20, so we're going to sell them for 20.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not based on their control on that part though. Some of them won't, because like they'll have a certain company and they'll tell them, okay, this is what we're gonna. It's like, you know, selling merchandise. This is what we're gonna do. Okay, and set a table and then say it was $25.
Yeah, I mean, not to name names, but yeah, there's certain conventions you go to, and the vendors aren't that good because the people running it are charging too much for the vendors. And then the vendors who do come have to jack up their prices to pay for what they had to pay to get in there.
Oh yeah, it's just.
So it's, you know, where you go to some other convention run by somebody a little more lenient, suddenly there's all these new dealers. It's like, oh, cool, I've never seen this guy before, and you look at the prices, it's like, oh, these aren't bad. So it's, you know, it's a whole ripple effect.
Yeah, it's like a big ring that you just can't control. It's just how it is, as far as that goes. So, what do you think the future holds for film, in general? What do you think is going to happen in the future?
Film won't be film. I suppose they'll continue to call it film, just like you call something. You know, it'll be a term like art. You know, it'll apply to a sort of style of visual storytelling, I guess. Cause, you know,
it's like when
going away. It seems like that, you know, the straight to videos, the straight to the viewer thing. I mean, that seems to be the way more and more stuff is going right now. There's the whole idea of 3D, which seems to be like maybe starting to struggle. We'll see if these 3 and 4D TVs like help, you know, create more of a continuing existing audience for that.
Yeah.
The gap between when it comes out theatrically and when it comes out, where you can just own it or watch it or stream it, you know, is getting so small. There used to be always this theory that people always go out to a movie because people like to get out of the house and stuff. But of course, like the way society kind of is, you know, you run into people who don't want to get out of the house because it's a scary, thing.
It's like, go to the fucking movie theater.
Yeah.
But even that, oh my god, man, they charge $8, $10. I don't know how much it is now. Probably like $15 just to get popcorn.
Oh yeah, well yeah, the theaters can really only make money because the percentages with the film companies are so great that their profit is in the food. So of course that goes up, whether they're offering more and more different types of food.
Yeah, even the franchise. Oh look, you know, Friday the 13th. Okay, we're gonna boost up the sales even more.
But so it is a matter of like I don't know that they'll be the same kind of sort of like long term like huge fan bases of things which were like you want to use the word holistic or something, holistically created, like Star Trek. You know, people bringing Star Trek back, that was, nobody like put money into that or thought about that. It was like a group of fans who got together and wanted that to happen. It took them a while. You know, it took them like 10 years, you know, between when the series ended and before they finally got it to make a movie. That amount of time is never going to happen with something. I mean, there might be, and I would hope there would be like some movie that comes out that doesn't come out in a big way or like just comes out straight to streaming, and like over the course of 5 years or so, like people get behind it and there becomes like a fan base of a movie that basically never like made it big.
Mm-hmm.
Runaround for stuff is just going to get so fast that it's going to become tougher and tougher to ever have a chance to really establish like a cult audience.
You know, today's it's like you got a lot of companies are aiming toward the younger generation because
Right.
everything's so popish now. You get all these big names here and there, and it's not really a film anymore. You're just slapping shit into a film.
Right. I mean, now they basically make certain movies specifically to have a fan base. You know, they're like aiming for such a target audience that it deals with the product placement and everything else about it. So it's a pretty like the Monkees were called the Prefab Four. The Beatles were the Fab Four, and the Prefab Four is all these are like Prefab Four movies. They're like, ooh, this is a cult movie. This is the way we'll sort of we'll go straight to the cult. But we'll see. I mean, with the internet and stuff, if you could actually just directly sell your movie to people who wanted to watch it, and somehow promote it in a way, get the hits and that stuff. If that could actually make your money back, then that would be great. If you got to a point where you literally didn't need a distributor, because everybody always complains about distributors, and it's like, well, go do it yourself.
Yeah.
And a few people have done that, but basically then you become a distributor more than a filmmaker. That takes a lot of time, and it's its own specific thing. And so everybody who always complains about it isn't going to go off and do that.
Yeah. It would take more time and money than what you put in your own film if you were doing that.
Yeah, you'll find that the money you would have put into making another movie will end up, the time, energy, and money will just end up being to sort of manage the release of your own film.
No,
a lot of movie companies started because they were theater owners who wanted to make stuff to put in their own theaters because they were getting jacked around by other people. That's how Universal and these companies started.
Yeah, some of them actually did put their own films in there, which was cool. I want to actually see that. Actually see more stuff put into actual theater other than what's being showed.
But the thing is, they need to sort of support that with ad dollars.
Yeah, that's the only big problem right there. That's why.
Advertise it. Is it all the million different TV stations? Do you have enough money to carpet bomb all those?
Yeah.
You kind of need to. But it needs to kind of stick long enough for somebody to be able to find it, to come back and get it again.
Yeah.
It's never really like a stable, you'd think well, this will come out on DVD, and then if I don't buy it this year, I can buy it next year, but a lot of it's always kind of been a kind of transitory thing, it's like the paperback book, and with all this ether stuff, it's, the potential for that to be even more, how you didn't download it this week, next week they put a bunch of other movies up there, and that one, who knows where it went to, you go to some buddy who maybe downloaded it and watched his hacked version, or as soon as he watches it, he deletes it,
Or people that actually use their own video camera to film it off a big screen somewhere.
Oh, yeah, the whole piracy thing.
Yeah, I actually had a bunch of films on DVD. I never watched them. Then I lent to my cousin, and he's all sitting there watching. He comes back to me, and he says, "Well, this is someone that already filmed this." It's like, what do you mean? It's like someone used their camera and used it actually went to the movie theater and actually filmed the film. I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw a version of King Kong which was that way, and the usher would come down and the guy would hide the camera under the seat for a while, Yeah.
It's just so stupid.
People when they were working for Charlie Band over in Romania, Jurassic Park was playing on Romanian TV, and what was playing was somebody who'd shot it in a theater. So you're watching somebody's camcorder Jurassic Park, on television, broadcast television in Romania.
Yeah, it's just people like that just don't deserve to even see a TV, let alone that.
Yeah,
it's just stupid.
Part of the part of the thing seems, digital technology and stuff makes copies much, but even camcorders have gotten so much better. It used to be that stuff was almost unwatchable. If you were a real hardcore fan and you wanted to see that movie early, you pretty much knew it was going to be barely watchable, but you were going to watch it because you wanted to see it.
Yeah.
You didn't expect it to be great looking, but now people can hack this stuff, and the hacks are really, really good.
Yeah.
The music industry started with that whole thing where people were able to hack
definitely
easily, and it sounded exactly the same as the original. So then all you're losing is the artwork, and color Xeroxes and printers. Everybody has those now. Stuff's just gotten so good.
Yeah, digital is just...
It almost seems to me like you buy the DVD player, you buy your computer, you get online, and I think some people grow up thinking well, I bought the computer, so anything the computer can have fed into it should be free, because that's what I paid my money for. So if I can if I can watch movies on my computer, I paid for my computer. The movies, why should I pay for the movies? It's just part of my computer.
Yeah.
anything I can like hack, watch, do on my computer, it's just part of what I bought it for.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
That's that whole idea of like what the term intellectual property. It seems like nobody even understands. People. Well, yeah, somebody just made up that shit. Well, yeah, it's like they made up that shit and got paid for it, which enabled them to make up more shit that, if they're really creative, is what people are interested in.
Oh yeah.
But if you make nothing from your ideas, if you make nothing from the stuff you make, then what you'll get is nothing.
No, it's still a problem, but
you'll get things that look like movies, but they aren't. They're e-tickets.
Yeah, it's
not real.
You just, as I said, it's just
not all that way, but I mean that's sort of the big looming danger. That it's like
yeah, it's
just the big corp. If corporate, I mean, and the other way, like if big companies were interested in theatrical releases and like DVD and all this sort of stuff was sort of like they made money off of it, but it wasn't really something they cared to like focus on, then there'd be room for like a lot of like straight to video product and stuff, as there was, when the video boom first started. But now all these, once the big corporations got interested in releasing stuff, TV networks started releasing their own shows online and all that kind of stuff. Then the thing is, and then these big octopus corporations get to take over everything, which means there's really less quality product for people who want to see something different to watch. So they're going to have to, put up with like indie stuff or more crude, production values, quote unquote, if they want to like seek out something different.
Or sometimes they just throw that in there just to buy some time. Oh, here, check this independent film, whatever it's called. Here, check it out.
It becomes more. Everything becomes like TV. TV, the big grind for that is there's 24 hours a day. You got to have something up there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, TV. Oh my God, television, TV shows are just pure shit today. It's all just shit. It's nothing worth watching anymore.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like they want to put as little money in to get as much money out. So, of course, the whole reality show thing.
Yeah, the so-called reality shows and.
Right. They're scripted, but they were able to, they're not even union scripted shows and stuff.
It's like they're not even actors, man. Are these real? They're not even real actors. They just hired somebody to play the part because it's a reality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're basically actors playing themselves, sort of.
Yeah, and then unless you see some of these actors that were in like a popular or so-called reality show, and you see them doing a commercial, and it's like, wow, you're not even acting in that commercial either, and you're getting paid to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's just terrible. It's television shows. You don't see really good television shows anymore. You see a lot of shows just copying off everybody else. Like you'll see this, especially like cop ones. You see a cop-related TV show, they're copying off another one. New one pops up, they're copying off that one. It's just a whole chain of copying.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just how many still, I guess CSI, I was just reading, is still like the most watched television show in the world. Just how many basically like CSI ripoffs there are. Just like it's the same, magical widget broken match with the DNA on it that like solves the thing, which is not really the way real, police and mysteries work. But it's just amazing the appetite for the same thing. And the other thing, which is kind of weird about TV now, is even like the dramas, a lot of them, not all of them, but there's no episodes anymore. It's all basically like a soap opera format.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, it's like the Sci-Fi Channel is definitely, or the Chiller Channel, they definitely have a lot of those older TV miniseries that you see. It's like, which is pretty good. And they got new ones that are coming out, which is pretty decent in this generation, considering how much shit that's been out,
Mm-hmm.
But it's just...
Well, I mean, it's, potentially like, there should be, I remember some teacher in school saying that, like, what'll happen is that, like, with all this stuff, is that, like, people will be able to find stuff. So if you're into, like, purple elephants who water ski, you have the potential that there'll be a channel for you, or now it's just some, website, which is just all about purple elephants on water skis.
Yeah.
Which is kind of exciting to think about, and it's sort of happened. But, like I said, when the big corporations get in there and basically, like, cram it all up with the same stuff, when they really want to milk the cow to death, in every certain level, then that sort of forces that out. And the thing is, like, depending on the, initially, like, the internet was, like, totally free, which was probably, like, sort of a mistake, like letting people not charge sales tax and all this kind of stuff. Seemed like they let that go on a little too long. Because then you got into a situation where, you know, if you're into DVD, we're into horror movies, DVDs. So, you know, you go to all these like places, a lot of which are gone now, but Tower, Best Buy, places like this. And like these things, everything was coming out on DVD. You know, MGM started releasing all this old stuff on DVD, and people were buying it. They're like, "Oh my god!" And then like old TV shows like became really popular.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, I can own all of Get Smart and, you know, the Gunsmoke and whatever. But the thing is, like, so you go to the store and they've got like whatever 5 copies of the thing. Well, the thing, you know, Universal sort of appreciated its own library. But anyway, so like the first, especially in LA, like, you know, the Hammer films came out. So like Best Buy gets like 5 of them. They get like, you know, 25 of, you know, Mission Impossible. Those 5 copies sell out the first day because there's 5 guys like you and me who always wanted to own that. You go, you buy it. The stores didn't restock. Like, they didn't really pay attention to what was like selling. So then you couldn't get it there again ever. So what do? You go online where basically you order it. It comes to you. You got to wait a little while, but you know you're going to get it. So then you also have the added advantage that the online guys have, where they basically, it's like, you know, there's not all the overhead and stuff that there is in a big store. So that's where, you know, the ineptitude of people like stocking hardtop stores gave an opportunity for people online to like start doing this stuff. And the other thing they started doing, Netflix, was just like offering it just like dirt cheap, because there was no overhead.
Yeah.
Which is great until they come to buy your movie and they're like, well, we only need, you know, we're only going to pay $1 a unit.
Yeah.
You know, that's when the things got bad.
Yeah.
It was really it, because I remember talking to several people who ran these things, and they're like, yeah, you know, they won't, you know, and music too to a certain degree. It's like, yeah, you know, they'll buy a couple of things just as an experiment, but nobody's paying enough attention to go, oh wow, you know, those 5 things, those sold out like the first day we got it. We're going to get 3 more at least, or get another 5, or this time we're going to order, you know. So, you know, that's what kind of created this mess, or this. It's just kind of the speed that things happen. You know, it just gets faster and faster.
Yeah, it's all productivity.
Movies.
All productivity.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, fuck the quality. Let's have productivity.
Yeah. And some TV shows, you know, the X-Files and stuff like this, is interesting because they were actually, you know, television can potentially be a writer's market because the writers are the producers. So they're in control of the writing. The script is the script. So there's these different waves of, like, you know, quality, you know, series stuff going on in TV, usually limited series.
Is that partially why you don't go for the making your own TV series?
Well, you know, to get your own, you know, imagine trying to sell one movie is tough enough. Trying to, like, sell somebody the idea of making, you know, 24 movies this year, you know, about the same thing.
Yeah.
And you got to have a, you know, fair amount of money for that. And like I said, and to me, TV is about perpetuating. Basically, you get an idea that's like seems pretty cool, and that you know you can like basically stretch out for, you know, whatever the limited run they want to have now is, 3 years at least. So it's not really about making each show the greatest it could be. It's like having like a good enough idea to turn it into basically like crap, because every series is essentially going to like run into the ground eventually. So TV is about just perpetuating, and also just this killer, you know, we got to fill this hour kind of thing. That's more important than the quality of it. In features, with this faster and faster turnaround, which they're having, that kind of pressure and lack of quality starts to happen to features more and more too. But TV, it really is just all product. I mean, there's so much time to fill, and so
yeah.
And, you know, if you're doing like an anthology TV series, Twilight Zone, it's a great show, you know. That's different,
definitely.
But for whatever reason, like those, you know, I mean, they were expensive. That's why they got canned. You know, basically TV started to create its own star base, so they didn't need movie stars to show up once in a while and do TV.
Yeah.
I think with people's like appetite for something different, or you would hope they have an appetite for something different. Maybe they don't anymore. That an anthology show could do really well. I mean, that's different because then you're making, you know, you're picking the stories, and you know, each one can be totally different than the other one, and each one can be as good as you can possibly do it. That's the problem with you going to make a sequel. It's like you're trying to like, well, let's not. I mean, I've heard this with people, even like as a writer. It's like, well, you know, the first one we don't want to use up all our good ideas because we want to do 6 of these.
Yeah.
Yes. No. You should use up every great idea you possibly can in the first one. You can always make a sequel or something, but don't make the first one less good because you know you're going to make 6. It's like, well, we don't want to give it to them all at once. It's like, Well, you ought to. You ought to make the greatest thing you possibly can. And if it's so great, then sure, there'll be a bunch more of them.
And usually the
Next
sequel.
guy's challenge is to come up with something that's good or better than what you did the first time around, you know.
Yeah, usually by the third sequel of most films, it usually just don't go very well, and it doesn't go very well on from then.
Yeah, it'll usually keep going after that. But,
yeah,
I mean,
if it's really popular, it'll keep going.
I needed to see. I thought. I was like, okay, I've had enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame people like the Exorcist series, the whole sequels for that. I don't blame them for quitting after the third one. It's like, it gets boring afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like, what more really can you go from that? I mean, he comes back again and he possesses someone else again and again and again. It's like, so technically he's unstoppable.
Right. Well, the Italians helped kill that off, and all the foreign rip-offs of that movie. There were so many of them so fast that it kind of beat Hollywood at its own game. By the time Hollywood wanted to do it, they'd already been beaten to it. You know, they didn't get to make 6 bad sequels because there'd already been 6 bad rip-offs made before they got around to making the first sequel.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, man. Why don't you plug in some websites and also give the exact date? This film is coming out in DVD, correct?
Yes, it is. It's not. It won't be all ether. There will be a VOD and all that stuff, day and date. It's August 23rd, closed for the season through MTI. But yeah, there'll be VOD and pay-per-view and all that stuff. I think one of those is like a week later, but it is coming out on DVD. There's a lot of extras. The park is a really, really cool location. So I got footage a guy shot of the park like 15 years after it closed and 15 years before we shot there. And I've also got, which I did as a separate little documentary. And there's another documentary about the original location scout we took of the park, which was in the winter after an ice storm. So, and there's commentary tracks, and there's deleted scenes. There's an alternate ending, which doesn't necessarily change. There's a thing about the ending that's not completely explained, and in this deleted scene, basically you get it filled in. It doesn't change what the movie's about, but it does sort of fill in some of the little gaps, you know. And
of course, it does include Joe Unger that played in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
It does. Joe Unger, Amy Brooks, from Angler Reborn and many other better movies. Joe's got probably the biggest part, you know. As biggest part he's had in a horror movie, certainly. I mean, he's all over this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Damien, who's doing this Joe Lansdale movie, Christmas with the Dead now. It's a really cool location, and again, it's for people who want something different, not something boring, because boring is bad.
Yeah.
It's a really cool location, and it's I think there's some real kind of like cool, unusual things in this movie you won't see before, and you're not going to see again, because it's a real location. I mean, you couldn't build a park as cool as this. If you had all the money in the world, you'd still not come up with something as cool as this place unless you had the money to build something and let it sit for 30 years, and all the history and all that stuff which went into it. So, as an indie thing, that's kind of a real find. And like I said, I think we really told the real sort of like story of what these places are about. Rather than just make it a killer hiding under the roller coaster, because it could be a killer hiding in your closet. It may be the same damn movie. So
yeah, there is a movie like that. Wasn't it called Carnival? I think it was where about a guy kills a woman in a theme park roller coaster, and he's also best friends with this kid that knows the park, and they close down the park, and like 30 years later he comes back to kill again or something like that.
There's that movie Dark Ride where they obviously had no ride to even shoot on. That's just a bunch of kids in a warehouse. That's like, oh, this would be cool. And then you watch it, it's just like a bunch of people running around in the dark.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Okay. Yeah, but they just didn't have the money to actually have a park, so they shouldn't have made the damn movie.
Yeah, it's like that's like this dude's like killing everybody.
We're gonna park. They had like one crappy shot of a park from far away. And
I know.
A shot of a fence with a corrugated building, and they like go in there and they're like, "Hey, we're in the park," and then they're just running around in this.
Oh, it's like why did you close the place after one murder? I mean, really, 30 years and you close it for one killing, and he comes back again and kills people.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even that. It's not like that major. He kills one guy and they close it down. It's not like he killed dozens of people over the years or anything. He just comes back after 30 years and does it again.
Yeah. Like I said, my goal with this was to make something true to the park and something different than all those other things.
Pretty much
such a cool location. I was like, I'm not just going to try to turn it into another movie. I want to make it its own movie.
Yeah, pretty much come to life as far as the rides and stuff. Even if it's all dead and decay looking, make it come to life as far as the horror goes. You see a lot of films just don't bring that anymore. But yeah, there you go. That's tonight's victim, Jay Woelfel, writer and director.